Welcome back to Who Immortal Today, where we honor the legends and reveal the untold stories time tried to forget. Today's tribute: what happened to Jayne Mansfield's 5 children? Surprising lives revealed. She was a Hollywood icon, but behind the glamour was a mother, and a legacy carried on by 5 children, each with a story of resilience, fame, and personal struggle. We'll uncover rare photos, hidden truths, and emotional journeys you've never seen before. Stories shaped by tragedy, but not defined by it. These are the lives behind the headlines. Real, raw, and unforgettable. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you believe these stories deserve to be remembered. Tap the bell so you never miss a moment. Let's begin. Jayne Marie Mansfield, A Life in the Shadow of Fame. Part 1. Early life and family background. Born on November 8, 1950 in Dallas, Texas, Jayne Marie Mansfield entered the world already destined to live under a spotlight, not her own at first, but that of her mother, the iconic Hollywood bombshell, Jayne Mansfield. Her birth name was Jayne Marie Mansfield, a deliberate homage to her mother, who had already begun pursuing stardom even before achieving widespread fame. Her father was Paul Mansfield, Jayne Mansfield's first husband, a relationship that would soon dissolve amid the pressures of ambition and show business dreams. Jayne Marie's early childhood was both extraordinary and complicated. Her mother's rapid ascent in the entertainment industry during the 1950s, particularly as a rival to Marilyn Monroe, meant that their lives were anything but typical. Paparazzi, movie studios, and gossip magazines became a part of Jayne Marie's surroundings from an early age. Although she was the daughter of a star, her experience was not always glamorous, with her mother constantly in the public eye, often exploiting her image as a blonde sex symbol. Jayne Marie's upbringing was punctuated by instability, relocation, and the ever-shifting dynamics of fame. The family moved to Los Angeles as her mother's career skyrocketed. Jayne Marie, still a young child, found herself navigating a world full of film sets, late-night parties, and the blinding flash of cameras. While other children were forming bonds in neighborhood schools and playing in parks, Jayne Marie was often placed in a supporting role in her mother's dramatic life, sometimes even appearing in publicity photos. She was raised alongside several half-siblings, as Jayne Mansfield would go on to have 5 children with 3 different partners. Jayne Marie was the only child from her mother's first marriage, which placed her in a unique and often isolating position within the growing Mansfield family. Jayne Mansfield's multiple relationships and her sometimes tumultuous personal life created a home environment that was unpredictable. Though she deeply loved her children, Jayne Mansfield's career and personal choices often took precedence. She married and divorced multiple times, notably to bodybuilder Mariska Hargitay, father of actress Mariska Hargitay, which added new dynamics and further blended the family. Amid the swirl of fame and family drama, Jayne Marie grew into a reserved and observant child. Unlike her mother, who thrived in the limelight, Jayne Marie developed a more cautious view of public attention. By the late 1950s and early 1960s, as her mother's career began to wane and her eccentric publicity stunts drew criticism, Jayne Marie bore witness to the fleeting nature of celebrity lessons that would shape her attitudes for years to come. Tragedy struck in 1967, when Jayne Marie was only 16 years old. Her mother, along with her boyfriend and their driver, died in a horrific car crash in Louisiana. Though Jayne Marie was not present in the vehicle, the incident changed her life forever. Not only did she lose her mother, but the event became a media frenzy, with gory details and sensational headlines overshadowing the deep personal grief felt by the family. Jayne Marie suddenly found herself an orphan in a way, having to mature quickly in a fractured public and often unforgiving world. Despite the emotional turmoil, she remained close to her siblings and tried to preserve the memory of her mother while navigating her own identity. Jayne Marie Mansfield, A Life in the Shadow of Fame. Part 2. Adolescence and Education. Following the tragic death of her mother in 1967, Jayne Marie Mansfield, then only 16 years old, was thrust into a new world defined by loss, responsibility, and a complex legacy. The sudden absence of Jayne Mansfield, one of the most photographed women of her era, left Jayne Marie and her siblings emotionally adrift. Though the younger children, including future actress Mariska Hargitay, were placed in the custody of their father, Mariska Hargitay, Jayne Marie, nearly an adult, faced a more uncertain path. In the wake of her mother's death, Jayne Marie began to seek some semblance of normalcy. She remained in California, continuing her education while trying to cope with the trauma of loss. The experience was compounded by the public's insatiable interest in her mother's life, and especially her death. Tabloids frequently ran salacious retrospectives on Jayne Mansfield, often accompanied by old photographs that included her children. Jayne Marie was regularly reminded that she was not just mourning a parent, she was tied permanently to a mythologized version of that parent. Academically, Jayne Marie's performance was respectable, though overshadowed by the expectations and distractions tied to her last name. Teachers and peers alike often knew exactly who she was, which made it difficult for her to simply be a student. Still, she was intelligent and observant, known to be more grounded and self-contained than her mother. In some ways, she was a quiet counterpoint to the larger-than-life figure she had grown up watching command rooms with charisma and curves. Her high school years were deeply introspective. She expressed an interest in psychology, literature, and theater, though she was hesitant to follow her mother's path into the entertainment world. There was pressure spoken and unspoken for her to embrace Hollywood, particularly as casting agents and producers were aware of her lineage. Some saw her as a potential next-generation sex symbol, but Jayne Marie was not eager to inherit that identity. She had witnessed firsthand how fame could consume a person, and she was wary of losing herself in the same machine that had both elevated and devoured her mother. Despite her caution, Jayne Marie eventually did explore modeling briefly. In 1976, nearly a decade after her mother's death, she made headlines when she appeared as a Playboy magazine model, the first daughter of a playmate to do so. She was 26 years old and said at the time that she was embracing her own beauty and autonomy. Some viewed the move as a tribute to her mother, while others criticized it as perpetuating a painful cycle of objectification. For Jayne Marie, the decision was complex. It was part self-empowerment, part rebellion, and perhaps part catharsis. Still, she refused to let that single decision define her. She didn't pursue a Hollywood career with any significant ambition, though she made minor appearances and engaged with the entertainment world intermittently. Her adolescence had taught her the dangers of obsession with image. She was far more interested in establishing stability and privacy than fame. In interviews, Jayne Marie often spoke about the importance of protecting her family, setting boundaries, and reflecting honestly on her childhood. Her bond with her half-siblings remained strong, particularly after the loss of their mother. As the oldest of Jayne Mansfield's children, Jayne Marie sometimes acted as a protector and source of wisdom. She was especially supportive of Mariska Hargitay, who would go on to become a celebrated actress, best known for her role on Law & Order, SVU. Though they were at different stages in life, the sisters shared a connection rooted in resilience and the shared experience of growing up with a mythic maternal figure. Jayne Marie's adolescence and young adulthood were shaped by a need to both honor and distance herself from her mother's legacy. She would spend years trying to carve out a life of her own, not one dictated by public curiosity, but one built on reflection, healing, and a more grounded sense of identity. Jayne Marie Mansfield, A Life in the Shadow of Fame. Part 3, Adulthood, Career, and Personal Life. As Jayne Marie Mansfield stepped into adulthood, she faced a crossroads shaped by the weight of her family's legacy and the desire to forge her own identity. The path ahead was not an easy one. Being the daughter of Jayne Mansfield meant living in a public eye that was at once curious, expectant, and unforgiving. In the years following her mother's tragic death, Jayne Marie explored various avenues in the entertainment and fashion worlds. She initially gravitated towards modeling, a field where she could leverage her striking looks and Hollywood pedigree without the full glare of acting's intense spotlight. Her height, poise, and striking blonde features echoed the glamour her mother was known for, and she appeared in several fashion shoots and promotional campaigns during the 1970s. Yet, unlike her mother's flamboyant and provocative career, Jayne Marie sought a more grounded and private approach to fame. She showed interest in theater and smaller acting roles, though she never pursued stardom with the same urgency or risk-taking that defined Jayne Mansfield's trajectory. Interviews from the period suggest Jayne Marie was cautious about how she managed her image, wanting to be recognized for her own merits, rather than solely as a Hollywood legacy. Her personal life was marked by close relationships and efforts to build stability. She married Barry Lang in 1974, a businessman who provided a sense of normalcy away from Hollywood's turbulence. Their marriage lasted over a decade and produced children, allowing Jayne Marie to experience the roles of wife and mother beyond the spotlight. This period was quieter, more private, and largely shielded from the media. Despite this, the shadow of her mother's legacy was never far away. The press occasionally revisited the Mansfield name, especially during anniversaries of Jayne Mansfield's death or retrospectives on 1950s Hollywood. Jayne Marie often declined to engage publicly, preferring to keep her family's private matters out of tabloids and gossip columns. Her perspective on fame was nuanced, respecting its power, yet wary of its costs. Her life was not without challenges. Navigating identity in the aftermath of a famous parent's tragic and highly public death was an ongoing process. At times, Jayne Marie spoke candidly about the pressures she felt growing up with a mother whose image was crafted by studios and the media, a woman both idolized and objectified. Jayne Marie's struggle was to claim her own voice amid these competing narratives. Professionally, she diversified her interests, including involvement in art and occasional appearances at Hollywood events celebrating classic cinema. She maintained relationships with her siblings, particularly her half-sister Mariska Hargitay, who would later become a well-known actress in her own right. The two shared a bond forged by family history and the common experience of growing up amid Hollywood's highs and lows. By the late 1980s and 1990s, Jayne Marie increasingly stepped away from the public eye. She chose to focus on family life and personal passions, a deliberate retreat from the spotlight that had defined much of her early existence. While she never fully embraced the limelight, her connection to Hollywood's golden era remained a defining aspect of her identity, one she balanced with grace and discretion. Jayne Marie Mansfield, A Life in the Shadow of Fame. Part 4, Later Years and Legacy. In the later years of her life, Jayne Marie Mansfield embraced a quieter existence, focusing on family, personal interests, and preserving the legacy of her mother while defining her own path. Unlike the whirlwind of fame and tragedy that marked her youth, this period brought reflection, reconciliation, and a measure of peace. Jayne Marie rarely sought the spotlight, preferring instead to honor Jayne Mansfield's memory on her own terms. Over time, she became an important steward of her mother's legacy, participating in documentaries, interviews, and retrospectives that sought to explore Jayne Mansfield's impact on Hollywood and popular culture. She provided candid insights that helped paint a fuller, more nuanced portrait of the woman behind the bombshell image. Her efforts to humanize her mother, to separate myth from reality, resonated with fans and historians alike. Jayne Marie emphasized the complexities of Jayne Mansfield's life, the struggles with fame, motherhood, and personal identity, offering a perspective shaped by intimate knowledge rather than tabloid sensationalism. While Jayne Marie herself never pursued a high-profile career in entertainment, her familial connection kept her linked to Hollywood's evolving narrative. Her half-sister Mariska Hargitay's rise to fame in television drama brought renewed attention to the Mansfield family, and Jayne Marie supported her siblings' success with pride and encouragement. In her personal life, Jayne Marie remained committed to her family, cherishing her children and grandchildren. The experiences of loss, resilience, and reinvention that characterized her upbringing gave her a deep appreciation for the importance of stability and love. Jayne Marie Mansfield's story is one of navigating life in the shadow of a larger-than-life legacy. She embodies the challenge of honoring a famous parent while forging an individual identity. Her journey reflects themes of survival, discretion, and quiet strength. Today, Jayne Marie Mansfield's life stands as a testament to the complexity behind Hollywood glamour. The often untold stories of children born into fame, the sacrifices made, and the personal triumphs quietly achieved away from the camera's glare. Thank you for joining us on this journey through memory, loss, and legacy. Jayne Mansfield may be gone, but through her children and the stories we continue to tell, her spirit lives on. Each life touched by fame carries its own light and its own burden. If this story moved you, please like, comment, and share. Your voice helps keep these memories alive. And if you haven't already, subscribe and tap the notification bell. Because here at Who Immortal Today, we don't just remember the stars, we honor the souls behind them. Until next time, keep their stories alive, because no life truly ends when it's remembered.